should always.
Hi, Miss Ray.
Hey, there. Hey, Miss Betty. We should give the date. Do we say the date each time, or does
We
it
haven't
come
said
up?
we haven't said the date, but it would appear when anybody looks at it on YouTube.
Okay. Well, we're good then.
But it would be good to say the date because this is August the 5th, 2022, and it's Hank's half birthday. So I sent him a half birthday wish this morning.
Oh, I'll put that on my list. I'll do that too. Half B-Day.
Yes.
Okay.
And we should also take note of the little bits of pink in your hair.
Oh, yes. Can you see it okay?
Yes, we could. It's not as pink as it was, but it's definitely pink.
I'm going to put lighter. Does it seem better? Not really. Okay. Yes, I have pink hair in celebration of Molly's and Joel's little girl, Charlotte Ray Schenkel. And she was born on Bastille Day, which was one of Ben's enjoyable days, July 14th, and she was in 2022. So she's just a few weeks old, but Molly sends pictures and they are so sweet. And I think I'll be going sometime this month in August. So that's why I have pink hair.
That is so exciting. And I loved it that they didn't want to know in advance whether it was a boy or a girl. So Ray didn't know what color to color her hair until after she arrived.
Yeah, I had to wait. But I thought they were kidding me that they really did know. Because who doesn't know now, you know? And I thought since Molly's in the business of women's health and, you know, pregnant women especially, that she would know. And when I went to see her, I guess it was, we'll just say June, I thought, well, maybe they don't know because everything was like gray or cream or white or something. There were no colors at all. And I thought, well, maybe they really don't know. And they really did. They thought they were going to have a little boy and they have a little girl. And so I don't know if they're using colors now, but when she sends pictures, you know, the blankets and things were light gray. And I thought there'd be some green and yellow, you know, or white like that, but nope.
Well, next time you'll have to have some pictures ready to show on, you know.
Yes.
That will be good.
For posterity.
That's right. Okay, well, today I was going to start out, and I guess I should start out by saying that if anybody listened to the tape before this one, then I just want to reiterate that we were not in Fort Worth. I think that came up to my brain because it's been in the news. It's been in the news for some unfortunate incidents and so forth. And so I sort of had Fort Worth on the brain. But we were living in El Paso and Daddy was at Fort Bliss, which does seem to be a weird name for an Army base. But anyway.
Probably after some general.
Yeah, I think probably so. Okay, so anyway, I was going to start out today. And so I was going to go back. And I think this is one thing Molly had asked us about was things about that we knew about Daddy's side of the family, because we didn't see them that much growing up.
Yeah.
So I had a few things about that, not very much. But I was going to say that Daddy was a really good athlete. And when he went to the Citadel, I think he played basketball and football, but he was kind of a star at Citadel in football. And one of his sisters, I think it was Frances, but I'm not sure. Anyway, one of his sisters saved clippings, which we still have, and they're in my little box here. So if any of we're the ancestors.
Yep.
If any of our, what do you call it when they come after you?
Is that
Any of our
progeny?
followers, what?
Is that progeny? I don't
Yeah,
know. I guess.
that works. If any of our progeny has one of my boxes, then one of them has a lot of clippings about Daddy and his football and so forth. But when he first went to Citadel, I like this story. He was homesick. You remember that one, Ray?
It's a great story.
Yeah. So when he first went to Citadel, he was really, really homesick. And he kept writing home and saying that he wanted to come home. And they were saying, you can't come home. You know, you're at the Citadel. And anyway, one of the things that he talked about the Citadel, this is a parenthesis, was that I guess it must have been just for the new ones there, but when you ate your meals, you had to eat them in military way, or I don't remember what he called it, but anyway, you had to, like with your fork, you'd have to raise your fork straight up and then straight back and straight up and down, straight up and down. So I think they went through quite a bit as freshmen at Citadel. And he kept writing home and saying that he just couldn't stay. And they kept saying, you got to stay. So finally he said, well, I'm just going to leave. And so I think it was Frances, his sister again, sent a telegram and said, come home at once. Myrtle know better. And, and Daddy said that that they called him into the office or whatever it was to send him home from the Citadel. And he said he felt bad because they were so sympathetic. And of course, the telegram didn't tell a lie because Myrtle wasn't any better, but she hadn't been worse either. So he went home and he spent a few days, and then he went back, and then he was okay. But I thought that was very smart telegram, the way to word it.
I thought it was too, because I remember said he felt bad about it, but not that bad.
Yeah. So that was one story that I remember. And one story, let's see, that's the main thing about college. Then it's just that after we touched on this before, but after he graduated, it was in the depression. And so nobody was hiring civil engineers, and he ended up teaching school for a while. But anyway,
Teaching history, I think.
Yeah.
His favorite subject.
Yes. Okay, then I had a couple of things about Mom when she was a little girl, and when they lived on the back street, which now is Lamar, and so they lived sort of kitty-cornered across from Central School, which I think at that time it sort of had all the grades. Like, it didn't have kindergarten probably for grades 1 through 11. That's as many grades as there were, I think, when she was coming along. at first. And on Main Street was where Mom's grandmother and grandfather lived. It's hard to keep the generation straight to me.
Yeah.
So that's the building that we call Aunt Sue's house. And so in that house, well, Aunt Sue's house is right beside what we call Mammy and Pappy's house on Main Street. But Mammy's and Pappy's house wasn't there, of course, when Mom was a little girl. That was a horse pasture. And in Aunt Sue's house, that was where Papa Long and Grandma Rachel Reed, which is a great name. Grandma Rachel Reed Long lived. And Rachel Reed died. I don't remember how old she was when she died, but she died, and Papa Long was a bachelor, a widower for a long time. And so Mom said that when she was a little girl, that Papa Long would come back to where Mammy and Pappy lived on Back Street, right beside the old Presbyterian church. And Papa Long would come back and visit. And one of the teachers at the school, kitty cornered from their house, one of the teachers was a young lady named Miss Mary Trotter, who was teaching first grade. And Papa Long was pretty interested in Miss Mary. And so he would come back to Mammy and Pappy's house on Back Street and would take Mom, who was probably, I don't know how old she would have been. I don't know how old she would have been then. Anyway, he would come and get Mom and take her over to the school ground and hold Mom up by the legs to the window of Miss Mary's classroom. And so that would mean Miss Mary would come to the window and she and Papa Long would talk. And eventually things developed. And so Miss Mary became the second Mrs. Long. But what was Papa Long's name? I don't remember what it was offhand. We'll have to think about that. But anyway, that was a neat story. That I like that. And
well, yeah, that, as I recall, that was, you know, when he wed Miss Mary, then her name was Miss Mary Trotter Long, which right. I thought was kind of interesting.
And another interesting thing about that is that, well, I should think about this before I start into it, but I think when Miss Mary and Papa Long had a daughter, they named her Mary Susan. And I think Miss Mary's name was Mary Susan. Anyway, I think Papa Long had a wife, wait a minute, a daughter, a second wife, and a daughter named the same, Mary Susan. But I'm not sure about that.
Really? I'll be darned.
I think so. I just discovered that this past year. So stay tuned. And you're not our ancestors, descendants. I guess descendants will have to work for now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so going further along in Mom's early life, well, she talked so much about Back Street and playing on Back Street and how much she loved Back Street. And when she was in the 5th grade, then Pappy built the house beside Papa Long's house in what was the pasture. And so he built this big house, and they were going to move into it. And Mom did not want to leave Backstreet because she loved Backstreet. And they played at night under the street light, and they would play. I think her favorite game was sticks, and I'm not sure exactly how, but anyway, it seems like I think it was stealing sticks. So you somehow or another you're supposed to try to steal these sticks. So she did not want to leave Backstreet because there were all these cousins up and down Backstreet. And then there was this friend of hers, the son of a principal or superintendent or something. Stalvey was the last name. And I think he was a special friend of Mom's. Anyway, she didn't want to leave Backstreet. But when they moved to the big house and she was in 5th grade, she had her own room because up until that point, they had, Mammy and Pappy had 5 children. And they had that little bitty house by the old Presbyterian church. And so I don't know whether Mom was sharing a room then or not, but when they got to the big house, then she had a room all to her own, and she enjoyed decorating it. And she had in her room, she had what she called her poet's corner. And so she had, I don't know, she must have had books there, but I think she had some pictures of poets. And so she hung them in her poet's corner. And so
That's really neat. I've never heard that.
I think gradually it became okay to be in the big house. But she took some teasing from her teacher, Miss Mildred Nichols, which there are tons of stories about Miss Mildred.
Yeah, right.
Students either loved her or hated her, but she was a very exacting teacher. So if you made it through her class, you knew something, but you might have had a hard time. But one of the things Mom said was that Miss Mildred would tease her about, moving up in the world and moving to the big house. And Ray, I think you said you had a story. Do you remember it about being an English teacher?
Yes, I remember that. But when I was in high school, Miss Mildred, we called her Ms. Nichols, but Ms. Nichols was still teasing. But her teasing was pretty sharp sometimes.
Yeah.
She could tease and make you feel uncomfortable. And she was pretty funny that way. And she had this weird laugh, and she'd go, heh, heh, heh. We were all told that that's because she would get saliva in her dentures.
Well, it could be.
She'd always go, heh, heh, heh. That's what but I was not the best Latin student. And I remember one time, I can't remember exactly what, but it was some mistake I had made in Latin. And Ms. Nichols said something because it was obvious that I should have known that. And so she goes, well, Ray, who, let's see. Betty, do you remember she asked me, she asked me, was it who was my English teacher?
I think so.
And she'd say, who is your English teacher? Well, she's talking about Mom because Mom was teaching English then. And she said that a couple times to me over the year, which really was making me angry, disparaging Mom. And so one time I was telling Mom, and so finally Mom said, well, just ask her who my English teacher was. So the next time Miss Nichols was going, I'd make a mistake, she'd go, Ray, who is your English teacher? And so I said, Well, Miss Nichols, who was her English teacher, and she didn't say anything because it was Miss Nichols, who was Mom's English teacher. And finally she said, well, yes, but who is your mother? But she never asked me about my English teacher anymore. But she was a tough one. She'd say things like, not just to me, but, Ray, you're like the little boy with the bat. You ain't hit near one yet. And then time will pass, will you?
Yeah, that one I remember.
Yeah. I was not in the category of people who really liked her.
I didn't run up against her, but she had interesting questions. Like she asked, Norman, had you rather be a big fish in a little pond or a little fish in a big pond? And things like that. And she had a poster in her room that I think about every now and then, if I can remember it now. It was this picture of a city, and it said, and I don't remember who it was a quote from, but it said, they build the cities glorious while man unbuilded goes. In vain they build the world unless the builder also grows. I think, well, we're sort of carrying that out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just have a few more minutes on my cheap time. And I was going to say that moving further along, when Mom and Dad married, you know what I'm going to tell, Ray?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's a great story too. So
when Mom and Dad married, they started out rooming at, I think it must have been one of their cousins' houses in a room upstairs. And one of the roomers there was the principal at Central School, which was then elementary school, Miss Collins. And she was another very good character, but I think everybody loved, they were scared of Miss Collins, but I think everybody liked her.
I was scared to death of her.
Yeah, she was very strict. But anyway, yeah, she was this tall, angular woman that didn't marry, that I know of. And
people were too scared to marry her.
I think so. Anyway, when Mom and Dad married and they returned from their honeymoon, it turned out that Miss Collins had rigged a bell underneath their mattress. And I think she had a string going out the window, and so she could ring it or something like that.
It was I can't remember exactly, but she had a string that she could manipulate.
And of all people, for Miss Collins to do that, I mean, when I learned that, much, 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 much later, that was quite shocking. Well, I guess we have to say goodbye to our descendants for right now.
That's right. Well, I didn't know a lot of those stories, especially the one about Mary Susan.
Yeah.
Mary Susans.
And tune in for the next episode.
That's right.
Well, I will double check, but I know that there were two Mary Susans, and I think it turned out that I just found out that Papa Long's second wife was also Mary Susan, and Rachel Reed and Papa Long had already named. Wait a minute. Well, maybe
you're going to have to figure this one out.
I guess Mary Susan would have been a granddaughter. Anyway, there are two Mary Susans in there somewhere.
Yeah. And I didn't know about Mom's Poets Corner. I really like thinking about that.
I do too. Yeah, she was a English lover, English language and English country, which is always
Yes,
such a surprise to me because in history, you know, England was bad guys. And so I couldn't imagine why Mom would like England so much.
well, she sure did.
Yeah. It's surprising now to think how close I was to the Revolutionary War. I didn't realize how close I was. Yeah, that was just 100 years before.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Okay.
Perception of time changes.
Okay, brought your wave.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Here we go. In the meeting. We love you all. We don't
We
know all of you,
do.
but
We love you.
we don't know all of you, but we love you just the same.
That's right.
You can bank on that.